We're already sitting down and discussing this with Congress, and this is going to be something that happens absolutely within the first 90 days of this presidency. We're going to have a major tax reform, biggest tax reform since Reagan, and it's not just going to be a cut in corporate taxes, but it's also going to be a very large middle-income tax cut that's going to help this country.
All right, that was Steven Mnuchin talking to our Maria Bartiromo. He's Donald Trump's Treasury pick, Wilbur Ross, his Commerce pick. But both gentlemen making it very, very clear that tax cuts, individual cuts in tax rates will take effect or will be proposed at the same time. Corporate tax cuts will be announced. There had been some confusion about that. Both men online saying that they are coming. To Republican Senator David Perdue on what he makes of that. Now, it's pretty clear there's widespread Republican support, Senator, I'm sure. How do you get Democrats on board?
Well, I think the job one, Neil, is to get the economy going again, and that's exactly what this administration is beginning to talk about. I love these two selections, though, Steven Mnuchin and Wilbur Ross. These are guys that have experience and they know what they're doing. Look, there are three components to this tax issue that they're talking about. One is on the personal side. We need to clean the code up. We all know that. The second is the corporate tax rate is not competitive with the rest of the world. And the third, and I think just as important, is this repatriation tax that we've been talking about up here for some time. So I'm anxious to see the details of this, and I think we'll get bipartisan support as we get into the details.
You know what I noticed, and it could be just me, Senator, but there was an interesting exchange with Mnuchin on everyone gets a tax cut, and he cautioned with Maria that you know, everyone's taxes come down. To offset that for the wealthy, though, we will limit their deductions, so it will be, you know, not really a net tax cut. And that, you know, set me back a little bit because I think a lot of rich folks are unaware of that he was selling this as they'll like the simplicity of it, which if you're really rich, you have accountants who deal with that, so that's, I don't think, a big issue. But the idea being that they're going to give you something, the carrot, presumably a cut in the rate, but offset it with limiting the number of deductions you get, so it might be a wash. How would you feel if that were indeed the case?
Well, I think you have to do that, Neil. On the corporate side, I've been saying this for a decade. You've got to clean up the deductions. You know, right now,
to the point that then they don't get a tax cut, that in other words, it just offsets what's...
At the personal level, for higher income levels, yes, I'd be supportive of that. On the corporate level,
so your
though,
rich constituents, I just want to be clear, I'm sorry to badger you here, but for your rich constituents and all sorts of types of economic scale vote for you, and they're looking forward to a tax cut, if Mnuchin is right, technically they're not going to get one.
Well, what he just said on that piece was this will be a major tax cut impact on middle-class America, which is exactly what the president has been talking about. And what I was trying to talk about was the corporate tax rate, which is just as important because we want to create jobs in this thing as well. And so you've got to reduce that corporate rate to be competitive with the rest of the world. At the same time,
I agree with you on all of that, but I just want to be clear.
Reduction.
Is it a PR point to say we're going to lower the official top rate, but yeah, we don't want people to get scared thinking we're doing all benefits for the rich, when in fact you might be doing that anyway, but it's under the cover saying, yeah, we're going to limit their deductions so they end up paying the same, and that's not really the truth.
Well, I don't think it's a PR thing. I think exactly what these guys are trying to do is get the economy going, Neil, and that's why they're taking a multifaceted approach to this thing of tax reform. We've been hearing politicians talk about tax reform ever since I've been grown, and so this is an attempt by a business guy, an outsider, somebody that's been listening to people back home and feeling the pain of the electorate. And right now, job one of this administration is to get this economy going. I'm anxious to see the details, but I'm encouraged and hopeful that they're putting it up as a top priority in the first 100 days.
No, I think you're right. And one thing I will say, Senator, it's a way to bring on Democrats if you can make the argument. Those rich fat cats that you hate, you claim that, you know, the Republicans are always giving special benefits and exemptions to, they're not getting it. But if that's the case, then some of your rich constituents are going to come back and say, what the, you know?
Neil, there's another point here, and that is that this is a president-elect that's beginning to talk about working across the lines. He talked about breaking the gridlock up here. Now, I'm an outsider as well. That's what I've been talking about the last couple of years. The way to do that is engage people from the other side. We're going to repeal Obamacare. Well, we've got to replace it with something, and we want to engage with Democrats to come up with a bipartisan approach that will actually solve the problems of affordability, transportability, and insurability.
Senator, thank you very, very much.